Hey guys, Sean Bougie here. If someone could, I believe Chad is on. And if someone could, just give me a heads up you can hear and see me okay. I would very much appreciate it. Don from Leesport, Pennsylvania. Don, nice to have you on board. All the chat stuff, guys, will be private just because we found, been through this before, we found that, hi Michael, we have found that it messes up or slows us down a little bit when we make them live. So they'll all be private. Here we go. Aisha says we're good. Jasmine says we're good. Awesome. I'm going to stop chat for just a second. Wait a minute. Maybe not. Let me see. How do you figure out the overage amount? Overage amount. I'll come back to you, Ralston. That's not as crazy a question as you might think. Michael, I remember you, Gettysburg. All right, let me stop it for just 1 second, guys. So we got another check-in today. I am finally doing an updated list of everything we've got in the hopper. It'll be a video. It'll be coming out soon. Also, guys, I'm glad you saw this, but make sure if you haven't already, like the Facebook page because we usually do announcements on that. And we're getting weird stuff happening with the email servers these days where we're just email is not always going through. So that's a big deal for us to have an alternative way to do that. Obviously, subscribing to the YouTube channel will help you too. We do announcements on there. Good. Everything sounds good. I was going to do a couple of announcements, but we can do that as we go because we already got a question. Ralston, how do you figure out the overage amount? So Ralston, it's funny you said that because I'm going through a new training video I'm putting together. And one of the things I tell people is this is not something that you really want to backward engineer, okay? Very rarely do you want to do that. We're working on we've got something in the works to help people do that in some areas where it's very difficult to get lists. However, Ralston, 99% of the time, well, all the time for the guys that are working with us, you get a list. The county will give you a list. If not online, then you can either request it. There are lists for sale. I personally have a problem with that. I would rather teach you guys how to fish, right? So that you can go get your own list. And there's so many free ones online. That's helpful. It's also pretty easy to find them. So as far as figuring out the overage amount, Ralston, it's on that list. Now, at that point, you've got to research debt. You've got to make sure there wasn't an additional mortgage or equity line or something against that property at the time of the sale, because that will also count against the overage. That has a priority claim prior to the claimant. And a lot of people out there are making a mistake. They're thinking, well, you know what? I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to make the claim. I know there's $30,000 in overage. There's a $40,000 judgment against the guy. But hey, if the judgment holder doesn't show up, if we notify them and they don't show up for court, then we get the money, right? No, it doesn't work that way. They're not going to release it, guys. So you can't pretend that it's not there. The other thing is another issue that we find is people research debt against a property, and they'll see a mortgage that, let's say, was taken out in 1975 or 1980, let's say. Okay, well, and it was supposed to be paid off. It was a 30-year mortgage by 2010. It hasn't been satisfied or paid off. So certainly that's gone, right? It's 2020 now. No, if it's not satisfied, it's not satisfied. Court is not going to release. You can take a shot at getting that thing released, but good luck, especially if you guys ever looked on implodometer.com. This is a site that shows you all the banks that went under, particularly in 07, 08. It's insane what went under. The cool thing with that site is it gives you succession trees on who is the next owner of that debt. I only use this for deed flip, guys. I don't use it for surplus funds. I use it for deed flip if we're trying to clear up some title issues or something. But I'm going to tell you, if the debt's there and it's not satisfied or terminated by the bank or whoever had the debt, it's there. There's a few exceptions to that. One is occasionally you will see a bail bondsman's deed. Okay. And what that is they said, okay, fine. It's $100,000 bail to get him out of prison. In order to collateralize that, we're going to put a $100,000 bail bondsman's deed against the property, which is kind of like a mortgage, very similar to a mortgage, deed of trust. And those are usually very easy to get rid of because unless the person skipped, that's supposed to be taken off after they've gone through the court system and gone to jail or whatever. Having said that, most states have limits to where these bail bondsmen, once it's been satisfied or the person, they're no longer a flight risk or whatever, that's a big deal because they usually have a very short period of time to remove that bail bondsman's deed. We had this happen where I called the guy and said, "Hey, man, is this still in place? Because it was put in place 4 years ago. I'm having a hard time believing that, this hasn't been taken care of." And literally got a call from the bail bondsman from his attorney the next day saying, "Hey, we just took that off." Because there's a huge fine in most cases if the bail bondsman don't take that off very quickly. Hello and thank you. I can hear you. Great. I downloaded the National Deed Flip ebook in 2018. Has it or will it be updated? Aisha, all of the updates we put on those books are on the resources page. We actually list updates on there and also on support, I think, but the resources page generally has all the updates as we go on. I think, and I don't hold my feet to the fire, but usually about every 5 years, if there's been a lot of changes to a book, we'll actually give people a new book, give them a way to get a new book that have purchased it. But honestly, 5, 6 years is not uncommon for us to wait before updating a book, just because we can put the small little updates as we go. This stuff's bulletproof. The small little updates as we go on the resources page. TJ, would you recommend using a title company for checking the title? No, I wouldn't. Guys, not hard to check it. The other thing is, title companies like to do certified title, which means they want to do the title as it stands today, not as it stood the day before the foreclosure, the day of the foreclosure, before it was transferred. They want to do title as it stands today, and they want to do certified title. You don't need certified title. You want them to double check. Now, just so you know, TJ, what I do is, yes, it will be recorded. What I do is when I go under contract, get the contract back from them, I send all that information to the attorney, and I have the attorney hire a paralegal for $100, for just $100, checking the title as it stood that day, 100, 150 sometimes. The reason I do that is I build in a delay from when I get the documents back and when I'm giving them their 10% up front, their earnest money check, their good faith money. I have a 2-week delay, and during that 2 weeks, the attorney is going to have a paralegal run down or a title person run down and double check, and it's not certified title. They're just looking to see how it stood the day before the sale. So, but TJ, no, that you'll go broke doing that. Even the cheap ones I've seen online are like $100, and that's title as it stands today, and it's not accurate. You've got to do title as it stood right before. No sound. That's a bad risk. I don't know what that is. Sean, what is the timeline for payout on a deed flip? I saw an old video that mentioned a time frame, but it seemed dated. Okay, so Martin, it depends. 90% of the deals, this is a great question. 90% of the deals I put together on deed flips, the people are not living in the house. Okay. Or if there's someone in there, I can get them out quick. From when I buy it, so it takes about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how close we are to the foreclosure date, to get a hold of them, get the deed back, record that, pay off the taxes. Usually it's taxes. If it's a mortgage, bring that up to speed or whatever. Usually it's 3 or 4 weeks to get all that done. And then at that point, I put it on the market immediately. And you're looking at 2 weeks later, bang, it's flipped for cash to an investor, because I buy the junk. I buy the stuff I can sell for cash, as is where is to investors, and make ridiculous return on our money doing that. However, occasionally you'll see where the people needed time. They need time to get out, and they're not biting on anybody's offer except mine, because I'm willing, okay, I will let you stay in there a month and a half, sometimes 2 months. So yeah, sometimes that's about a 3-month period, but the payoff is ridiculous on the deed flips for me and for the researchers. Patrick, I've been doing this since 2006 in the state of Washington. Oh, God bless you, Patrick. I use TLO as my skip trace service. I need to move states. AG rackdown. Yeah, we don't work Washington, Oregon, or Colorado. Good move. I know all of the ins and outs and have made a great living. I need to move to other states. Are you able to, with your program, discuss states and the regulations and what states I should focus on? Thank you, Patrick. Basically, Patrick, here's the deal. I'm going to give you a really good rundown, and I'm actually putting another kind of a public training thing up fairly soon on the YouTube site, or probably on one of these webinar jams. But Oregon, Colorado, and Washington state are no-goes. in my opinion. You're welcome to work them on your own. I just think they're a freaking nightmare. And you're not the first one, Patrick, that's gotten crap from the AG out there. I'm assuming that you got a little bit of crap. Colorado, I paid a large fine out there because they didn't like my mailing said it's court held funds because a department held the money, but I still had to go through the court to get it released. It was ridiculous. So Colorado, Oregon, Washington State are not goes. Florida is so different that we have a different program for it, just way different statutes. I will tell you that Philadelphia is difficult to work, that the rest of Pennsylvania is fine, but Philadelphia is difficult to work because the sheriff got in trouble, got busted, millions of dollars he was embezzling funds. So they opened what's called the Defendant Asset Recovery Team. I'm telling you all this, guys, for a reason. We've done, I think, 2 claims in there. The first one took 2 years to get out. That is how horrible the Defendant Asset Recovery Team is. And it was BS excuses. They didn't care. They didn't care if they paid it out or not. I mean, I am not exaggerating right now. The person we were working with was very old. We were concerned he was going to die before we got paid. Yeah. I mean, nuts out in Philadelphia. Parts of Tennessee, parts of those counties actually stick by the state statute, which means that in order to get a list, you request a list. In order to get it in some of those counties, you have to actually show a picture of a valid Tennessee driver's license. I don't know what that's about. I have no clue. Be careful. One of the questions that I got from a person that was working with us before, redemption states, sometimes you have to wait till the redemption period is, most of the times you have to wait till the redemption period is over. So if there's a post-sale redemption period, usually taxes, where the owner can still come back after it's been sold at the tax deed sale for up to a year, depending on the state, you usually have to wait. You can't just get it beforehand. That's why we have a different program called the redemption program, where we redeem the property for the owner, record the deed that's for them to us in our name, give them a portion of the profit and move on. But as far as surplus, it's a different animal when it's a redemption state. Now, a couple of states say they have redemption and they don't. I'm not talking about pre-sale redemption, paying it off before the sale hits, post-sale redemption. Some of them have a really long period of time. Texas can have a very long period of time. Florida says they do, but it's until they record the deed, which is usually less than a week. So the redemption period is just something to consider. Jeff can correct me on this, but I do believe South Carolina and even Georgia may have redemption periods also. California, we got to wait till the 1 year redemption period's up in order to claim tax overages. On Florida tax deed sale, do we handle available surplus funds on estates? Mark, that should be on your, listen, okay, I'm assuming you mean the deed flip, Florida deed flip, which is where we're buying the property pre-tax sale. In that case, what we're doing, I've got to have somebody that can sign that to me. So unless I've seen a deed that's transferred ownership into maybe a personal representative is what they call it in Florida, the executor. Unless I have that, or I have proof that someone is the executor on that, and it's recorded at the court, I'm not going to work with that. We're moving too quickly, guys, on the deed flips for us to make sure everything's cool with that. Surplus, there's some ins and outs on the Florida program that you can check, but it's difficult to make an estate deal work unless I've got all the paperwork. Hey, David. Hey, Sean and Jeff. In my files update, when it says sent to attorney, does that mean it's a contract that's going for sure bear fruit? It means it's gone to the attorney. And David, if we didn't contact you in addition to seeing that on your list, there's probably a little bit of hair on it. But we will know shortly where we're at. And I'll make sure I'll double check that for you too. Ahmed, sorry. If we bought the National Surplus Funds Program, no need to make contact with the person whose own funds. We will get 16% if you're able to locate them. Correct. No, the National Surplus Funds, you don't need to find people or call them. And as a result, you're getting 8% of the gross. Premier 16, you call them, you find them, you skip tracing, find them, call them, mail them, whatever, and hand it over when you find out they're willing to speak with us. And we give you 16% of the gross instead of 8% because you did more work. Teresa, if the mortgage was taken out 20 years ago, how do you find out how much or more is owed on the mortgage? Okay, so Teresa, I believe that's covered on the resources page, and maybe Jeff can jump in here too, but I will tell you something. We tend to assume First of all, interest is front loaded on mortgages. So the first 3 to 5 years, you really don't get anywhere as far as the principal. 20 years ago, I don't know if Jeff has a way to system for you to check that or not. The problem is it hasn't been, if there's a mortgage there, they haven't paid on that mortgage either. So with fees and late fees and all that, I believe Jeff says, hey, go buy, as far as turning it into us, go buy the original balance on that. You'd be amazed how fast attorney fees, late fees, past due interest, past due payment, all that stuff, it just goes crazy really quick. Snowballs. Caesar. Man, this is great questions, guys. This is the kind of webinar I miss. A lot of interaction. Caesar. Holy cow, I gotta go back down here. Sorry. There you go. There's no way for us to know amount owed. We always assume full amount. Just is concurring with me here. Ron, sorry you were talking about trying to work an overage deal of which there was a $40,000 mortgage on the property. I was just saying that's a bad risk to go after that. No, Ron, listen, if there is a 40K mortgage, especially like, let's say it's a 20-year mortgage and we know that the original balance is 40 grand. I mean, we can certainly check on that, but the original balance was 40 grand. I'm going to assume, that yes, it's even though it's a 10-year-old mortgage, it's still probably 40 grand or more because they haven't been paying, even though they paid it down. If you follow me, Ron. So I'll go after it if there's 60 grand in overage. If there's 60 grand in overage and a 40K mortgage, I can still go after 20 grand for the owner. I'll just leave 40 grand behind for the mortgage company if they don't show up. Does Bankruptcy Goldmine get support? I got the National Surplus Program. Throwing me a little bit with that question, Michael. So if you had at one point we gave away a Bankruptcy Goldmine program that didn't have support in it because it wasn't complete, didn't have like contracts. It was just an overview. It's kind of like a teaser thing we did. And in that case, it doesn't have it. But if you bought the system, yeah, support's built into it, just like everything else. Kim Lynn. Hi, my name is Kim. I purchased the Power Pack and do not know anything about overages. Is there a way for me to get speed up with this? I'm in DC. Hey, Kim, it doesn't matter where you are. You're online from home. Here's the big thing we run into. And I'm not making fun of you, Kim Lynn. I appreciate you asking the question. Guys, it's a 50, 60-page ebook. It's step-by-step. Read it. Read it twice so you have comprehension. And then it has a link with a password to the resources page with videos and all that. If you have questions at that point, you can ask support. But Kim, if you take the time and read that book twice, I promise you'll know the steps and you can start putting it into, start moving ahead. The biggest problem we got is people don't read the book. Can you give me some overview? No, you got to read the book. You got to read the book. That's why we put it together. We didn't put any fluff in there. Chris, is it safe to say that if one of my files doesn't show up on the surplus funds list online, it wasn't approved? I saw one of my 2 files at around the same time, but didn't see the other one uploaded. That was weeks ago. Okay, so Chris, that's one of 2 things happens, guys, especially those guys that haven't turned anything yet to us. Either it shows up on the list within, and we're behind right now, I'll be honest with you. We're about 3-4 days behind. We've got to catch up. We just had this crazy influx and a lot of issues at the office with that. So we're catching up. I'm actually hiring more people to help us on that. We're not going to be behind more than this week. But anyway, it either shows up on the list or you get an email from support saying, hey, here's the things you need to change. Please change these and we accept the file, and then you turn it back in. Having said that, if you didn't get an email from support and it didn't show up on the list, that means we didn't get that email and you must not have emailed it. And trust me, Chris, we have 3 servers backing up our emails. We get emails if they're sent. So there must have been some issue on your part. Resubmit it. Emily, I'm researching a Florida case for surplus funds that have several deeds. 2 deeds are dated and signed in 2000, but they weren't recorded with the county in 2004. What do I use as the correct date to determine ownership? The date on the actual document or the date it was recorded, stamped by the county? Doesn't count until it's recorded, Emily. Okay? So that's whenever that deed was recorded in 2004, that's when that deed became valid. Now, if there was another deed after that, obviously it changed hands prior to the foreclosure. This is a good question. It doesn't matter when the deed was signed. It's when the deed is recorded. That's why remember this, guys. That's why most states are race to the courthouse states. Okay. Now, just so you understand something, Emily, My name's Sean Bougie, right? So let's say in 2000, I sold my house to Jeff for $200,000. And I saw that he didn't record the deed. And I thought, oh, maybe something happened to Jeff. Maybe I was some scandalous guy, right? So I go over and I sell the house to Barb, and she give her a deed, and she records that deed, right? Now Jeff tries to record the deed, me transferring the property to him. Too late. I've already transferred it to Barb. Who's this Sean person? Barb owns the property. You follow me? So first of all, it doesn't count until it's recorded. But if it's recorded after the fact, after it's already been sold to somebody else, it has to be sold from the current owner, if that makes any sense. Or should I focus on? What should I focus on, since I think in the national surplus you don't work DC? Hey Kim, it's just impossible to get an accurate list in DC, and they're just crazy dirty there. Work anywhere except for Florida's a separate program with us. Work anywhere except for Oregon, Washington State, or Colorado. It just wherever you get a list. It's super easy to get a list if you just do blanket searches for this. Jake, Sean, with overages, what if the first deed shown is a tax sale deed with the previous owner's name, no kind of warranty deed recorded? Is that still a workable file? What if the first deed shown? Jake, I'm not following you. Keep in mind, guys, people do buy properties where it's a tax deed and they were the buyer at the tax deed 3 years ago, and now they haven't paid their taxes and now they're getting foreclosed upon. That happens. You would think they'd know better, right? Because they bought it at a tax deed sale, but that does happen. And I'm not sure I follow you. That might be a question for support, unless you can get a little more specific on me. Greg, I noticed late December the file update list for overages was changed, different from the current file list. However, after speaking to the county, that file shows still available. Does this mean you are not able to contact the owner and file still open? So, Greg, what we did is we created a purge list, and we did that because we work files generally for anywhere from 1 to 2 years. So if it came off before the end of the year, that's because it went onto the purge list. And if you would turn that in, return the thing in. Go ahead and turn it in using your system. By the way, that does occasionally pay off, especially if you've double checked and the money's still there. Good Lord, let's go for it. It does occasionally pay off because sometimes it takes people 1.5 years, 2 years to land on their feet. They're in mom and dad's basement in Oregon. They haven't opened up a new checking account or anything else. There's no way to hunt them down. Skip tracing companies aren't finding these people. It happens more than you think. And I got to tell you something, guys, and nobody's going to believe me. Probably 15% of our overage recovery deals, when I send the check out, I get a call within a day or two because they're using a check cashing place because they still don't have a bank account open. Okay. And that may be because they got into serious other issues where they had judgments and a lot of people running after them, and they're afraid to open up a bank account because they're afraid that they're going to garnish that or garnish wages or whatever. They're probably working somewhere under the table. So we see that more than you'd think. Stephania, we've been doing skip tracing using white pages and been verified, but we got a lot of bad numbers. What's the best way to go through calling all the numbers fast? Should I leave a message or keep calling? What has worked for you guys? Can you share details on the flow to save time and try to hit large numbers? Oh, by the way, Jeff says, Greg, on the resources page, we have a purge list. There you go. Back to Estefania. Okay. I don't like been verified. Never liked been verified. I like white pages. I like microbilt. And I like IDI data. IDI data is phenomenal at finding the claimant. Okay. Microbilt, MICROBILT, phenomenal at finding possible relatives and associates, more so than finding the claimant. I know that sounds crazy, but we will mail and call not only the owner, but possible relatives and associates, looking for them and asking for them, and sending mail in their name to the associate or relative's address, hoping they're going to forward it. Plus, the reason for that is, Stephania, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. The reason for that is there's always an Aunt May that will pass that money on, or rather that message on, after they call you and talk to you and get in everybody's business. There's always one of those, right? But as far as going through it, should I leave a message? I believe I gave you two. You should have two scripts. One for leaving a message and one for if you've contacted them. You should definitely leave a message because it's going to dovetail, especially with your mailings. You need to send mailings out, guys. We tend to hit them hard the first week, twice in the first week, and then once 2 weeks later, and then we're going in monthly hits. Now, when we've hit month 3, the end of month 3, we send out the takeaway letter and use the takeaway script. We're basically, hey guys, trying to reach you, you're not returning your call. We're going to see if there's another way we can claim this money, perhaps for a creditor. If you do decide to call us, here's our phone number. Have a great day. The letter is pretty much like that. So is the message. The fear of loss outweighs the desire for gain. The takeaway closing is the most powerful closing on the planet. And Zig Ziglar said, the fear of loss outweighs the desire for gain. And he's right. Okay. Hope that helped you. Eladio, and you know what? I should have put that in there. Maybe I'll put something together on that too for you. Eladio, for the National Surplus Funds Program, where do we input our direct deposit information? You don't, Eladio. I will get in touch with you when we put a deal under contract. And I typically, the first deal that we do with you, we send you a check via overnight. And the reason we did that, guys, real quick, is we had somebody that was trying to get us to use his mother's account and send it to his mother's bank account directly in her name, all this credit. And I said, okay, I'm not doing her name. Okay, we'll send it to this one guy at the bank that I know. It's like, dude, this is really sounding weird. I'm sending it to you and you figure it out. And we did some research later and found out the mother had died and apparently was stored in the house somewhere. Just crazy stuff going on. Anyway, first check is going to have to be signed for by FedEx or UPS. It's going to come to you. It'll be a bank check that you can cash like immediately. It's a bank check. After that, I have no problem wiring. As far as direct deposit, that's an ACH. It's better off for me to wire or PayPal or Venmo or just overnight a check to you. There's actually a delay in direct deposit type stuff. Frank, I called and spoke to you about investing. I never received the prospectus. I've emailed you twice, but still no texting. Frank, I immediately get back in emails. I will make a note to check that. I'll look through this webinar, but check your spam folder because I don't drop stuff like that. Emily, if two people are on the deed, but they are not married and one of the owners is now deceased, can the deceased owners have owner's heirs? The deceased owner's heirs have a claim to surplus funds in addition to the living owner? Yes, unless, Emily, unless it literally says rights of survivorship or joint tenants with rights of survivorship. In that case, if the deed reads John Thompson, this is a great question, and Mary Smith, they're not married, doesn't say they're married, and then it says joint tenants with rights of survivorship, or says anything with the words rights of survivorship, then it transfers to the person still alive, okay? If they were not married, we see a lot of brothers and sisters, we see a lot of friends anymore buying property together. If one of them dies, their heirs are entitled to their half of the deed. Or if it's 3 people, their third of the deed, whatever. Their heirs are entitled, not the living owner. Very good question. Glad you asked that. Chris, I missed the webinar you had back on the 3rd. Is there a way for us to see that? Chris, that'll show up on the resources page. That was the boot camp for Surplus 50. And that will be up probably the next week or two. Sorry about the delay on that. Stephen, hello, Sean. I haven't started out yet, but I wanted to know if I need to incorporate or form an LLC to participate in the programs. Absolutely not, Stephen. Especially if you're going to work at first. Most people work at first as a researcher or partner with us. And in that case, I'll just 1099 you as an individual. There's no issue at all. Another thing is if you decide later in the year you did want to go that route, LLC or corporation or whatever, you're welcome to. I'll pay whatever you need. I'll pay your company. I'll pay you as an individual. I do not have an issue either way. Man, this has been fantastic questions. Keep them coming, guys. TJ, any particular order for watching the videos on the resources page? No, not really. The main thing, TJ, is read that ebook twice, because then you can use those videos as additional kind of plugins, because the book itself is a step-by-step. The videos are just an addition to that. Great question. Just so you know, guys, we are probably going to go to for those of you guys who haven't purchased yet, we are going to we're really happy with the crew we've got and the way we've been growing. We're not always going to have the products available on the products page all the time. You're welcome to check whenever you want, but there's going to be occasions where we pull those off just because we're happy with what's going on and we're happy with the crew we have, and we're not worried about growing as much because the people that we're working with are phenomenal right now. So if you're interested, it always says the countdown clock is for midnight Eastern Standard Time that day. It's always like that. That's because that gives us the right to just pull it off whenever we want. Caesar, Sean, with the Deed Flip 30 program, are you guys only interested in properties that deal with homeowners only, or will you also take properties that are owned by private owners but are not in a pre-foreclosure or tax delinquent? Caesar, only things that fall into the parameters of our deal. I don't want to mess with anything except for pre-tax or pre-mortgage foreclosure. I don't want to deal with just abandoned homes and all. I don't. Pre-tax and pre-mortgage foreclosure, I know there's a sense of urgency, and that's what we're going to work. Good question. David, how do we know by state by state when the excess funds go to the state or county? David B. Hey, David, one of the things we said in the ebooks is to double check your statutes. You can and it's called statute. Okay. STATUTE. That's basically a state law. It's a statute. And you can look up excess funds statutes, North Dakota, excess proceeds statutes, North Dakota, surplus funds statutes, North Dakota, overages, North Dakota, overbids, whatever terminology they're using in that state. And it can be different for all kinds of different terminology for it. And something will pop up. Usually I will tell you, I tend to really like whenever you see an article on NOLO, NOLO.com, that's run by, or at least moderated, I think, primarily by attorneys. And the information there is stupid good. And you should always be checking behind to see if there's any changes to statutes. Jake, what would your verbiage to ask an owner if they would work with your office directly after locating them? Hey, Jake, that's right in the scripts are right in the ebook. We tell them, by the way, we're full disclosure. We tell them where the money is. We tell them how much it is. We tell them we'll give them 10% up front. We'll give them another, depending on how much, 40 to 50% later, when we actually collect the funds. And we tell them we can get things rolling within a week or two after they send the documents back to us. We will, at that point, turn it around. And I'm assuming you're talking about surplus funds right now, okay? Not deed flips, but we will turn that around and get them the first 10% amount up front at that point, good faith. If you're talking about deed flips, we simply ask them if they're willing to sell. We ask them what the condition of the house is. They always lie. We ask if it's vacant, how long. They'll say 2 months. It's been 2 years. What's the condition? Oh, it's fine. Just needs a little paint. Okay, the roof got burned off, whatever. We're going to double check that, right? And we ask them simple question. What do you think it's worth? The smart ones are not going to answer that. And we'll get back to them and make an offer at that point. But what do you think it's worth is good, because a lot of times the people go, it's worth 200,000 and my online values, right? I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the online values for property have pretty much come in line these days. But if they're saying, it's worth 225,000 and I'm looking at $170,000 online values, I know that they're not being reasonable. Okay. So that's kind of a red flag. I'm still going to make an offer depending on what I can make on it. But, just so you know, they always lie. We ask a lot of questions with the deed flip, and then we'll send out a mobile notary, just simply because they're certified, they're registered with the state. So we'll send that mobile notary out to actually take pictures. I know it sounds crazy. And the other thing I'll tell the mobile notary is, look, do a good job for me. If this guy agrees to sell the house to me, you'll be going back to the same house and getting a deed signed for me. So, take your time, get some good pictures, and they send that back, and then I'll make an offer based on what I see. Chris, what about 411 for finding people? Just for example, I acquired 3 businesses with a surplus. What about 411 for finding people? I have no idea. I've never heard of it. That's probably not a good thing, Chris, if I haven't heard of it. I've heard of Bellis Link, never tried it. I've heard a lot of people say good thing. I think it's BELLES. By the way, on the Microbilt, microbilt.com, talk to Randy Mostetler. If you mention my name, Sean Bougie or Greater Good Company, he will waive the startup fee, which is $200. That's a good deal. And Microbilt's a great company to go to with skip tracing. Just for example, if I acquire 3 businesses with a surplus and later close out the business account, what are the ramifications, if any, of doing this with the same banks? Do banks frown on doing this? Would it be best to open accounts in other banks? Just for example, I acquire 3 businesses with a surplus. Chris is talking about a zombie business reviver here, where you buy the business that's gone out of business. Well, not gone out of business. It's just not active. You buy that business. It hasn't been dissolved. It can't work dissolved, but it's no longer active. You buy it from the owner. You reactivate it because that business was entitled to surplus. You can buy it for next to nothing from the owner and then go get the money. I don't understand the same banks thing. The banks have nothing to do with that at all. Do banks frown on doing this? Would it be best to open accounts in other banks? I'm missing you, Chris. I'm sorry, buddy. I think I made a wrong guess as to what you're talking about on that one. Thanks. I do see the scripts and stuff. Roger, on the purge list, if the money is still there, exactly the same, do we submit the deed information or just send you the client contact info? Roger, you got to resubmit the file in its entirety, and you got to show us where you double check the money's there. Okay. You got to resubmit that file in its entirety. Ron, what is your exact criteria of customers that are eligible for the Deed Flip 30 program? There you go. Jeff said the same thing. You need to submit the file again. Ron, what is the exact criteria of customers that are eligible for the Deed Flip 30 program? So Ron, we're looking at DTV. We're looking at what the value is of the property versus what the debt is against it. Okay. And that's just our starting point, by the way. I don't know the exact percentages. It should be in there. If this is something it should be in your ebook for sure. If this is something that's keeping you from purchasing that because you're interested in the program, but you're not sure about the cuts or splits, I should say, or DTV or any of that, you're welcome to call in between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. Do me a favor. My number is 704-791-9398. You can text me that. Before that, give me a heads up. I'll open up the book and pull out all the requirements on there, and we can have a conversation. Chris, there is a veteran owed some money from HUD. How can we assist them if HUD doesn't work with third parties, people, or entities? I thought, what the heck are you talking about? I thought about providing the assistance and invoicing them, but we leave ourselves open for them not to pay us. What are your thoughts on this sector? Chris, you're all over the place right now. I think you're talking about HUD, where there was money paid up front when they bought the house, and then when they sold it, they didn't get a certain amount of money back. I think that there's a HUD referral type situation with that, a HUD system like that. I mean, short of getting an attorney involved, I don't know how you can do that. Invoicing, I would never invoice somebody for something. I've got to be on the front line on the claim. I would think you need to get an attorney friend involved with that, which means you're going to be limited on what you can go after. Artra, if a home is in foreclosure, are we able to help keep the property? Yeah, Artra, Deed Flip, National Deed Flip or Deed Flip 30. We will buy the home, pay off the debt that's foreclosing on it, record the deed. I'm going to get a deed from the owner first. They're going to have a contract, know what they're going to get. I record the deed. As soon as I record the deed and I see that it's recorded with no issue, I turn around and pay off the debt or catch up the mortgage. If it's a mortgage, I'll try to catch up instead of paying the whole mortgage off. Either way, I'll get them up to speed, and then I'll send them a check, depending on if they're in it. If they're in it, I'll send them a small portion up front, and the rest of it when they're out, I'll give them a strong deadline. For every day they're late, it's $2,000 less on the final payout. If they're not in it, I'll give them the full amount of money we agreed to. Shanita, seems most people are not reading the ebook because most of the questions asked are addressed right there. Can't argue with that, Shanita. Can't argue with that. Jake, thank you. Aisha, and to determine the value of the home, you take the average of the amounts from Zillow, Trillia, and tax assessment, right? Aisha, it's right in there. I think we use 3 different, I believe we do factor in the tax value, but it's right in there. And actually the worksheet on the deed flip has places where you do that. Yeah, it's covered in detail in the book. That's what Jeff says. Absolutely. Angelique Villages, is there going to be a replay sent to me at my email address of this webinar? Some things have come up tonight for me to take care of, and I will not be able to watch this whole webinar right now. Yeah, you should get a notification usually about an hour after it's over. Also, guys, typically the day after the webinar, it will show up on our YouTube channel as a replay. Estefania, what is the ongoing monthly fee for Microbuilt and White Pages Plus? Give Randy a call for Microbuilt. I mean, I'm grandfathered in from a long time ago, and plus, Estefania, I'm on a deal with them where I can do like 1,000 searches a month. So, so I pay a set amount to be able to do. Excuse me, to be able to do that. So I don't know what you'd pay based on your volume. As far as White Pages, I think it's $25 a month. And I think you get a lot of searches out of that. White Pages Premium. David, another files update question. Please explain dead file. File is dead, can possibly reopen in the future. Should I reinvestigate the file and resend? No, I wouldn't resend that, David. If it's dead, it's dead. Usually that means the people said no, or ran into some issue with it, or there was additional debt that we were made aware of from the owner. There could be a million things that happen on that. Tim, do you work with local realtors when you are trying to resell properties in the deed flip program? Yes and no, Tim. First of all, I'm a licensed broker in North Carolina, so I can put it in. We actually have Canopy, which is a large MLS that covers a huge, like half the state practically. So I can put it in there. If it's in other areas where I really want the local MLS, and you're going to hate me for this because I'm a licensed broker myself, and I understand. But with the deed flip, I typically do where I'm going to pay the buyer agent and I get it in the MLS for a flat fee listing. I know you hate that. If it's an area I've never been in before, like certain parts of Florida or any other state, Minnesota, Missouri, Tennessee, anything we've worked before, I will occasionally enlist the value of I will occasionally enlist a realtor. In that instance, that's because I need comps more than anything else, and I don't feel comfortable with what I'm seeing as far as market value. One thing I want to tell you, Tim, if you're going to do deed flips yourself, a lot of people, I used to be a realtor. I'm still a licensed broker in North Carolina. I still do what everybody else does, but I'm not a member of that association. The reason I did that, and I haven't gotten into trouble, guys, flipping property at all, but the problem with being a realtor is one of the things that you sign off on is if somebody has a problem with you, they can take you to realtor court, right? Arbitration, whatever, mediation for free. I don't like that. I'm very fair to people that I buy from, but the general public is crazy. Okay. So having said that, I don't want them to be able to take me to realtor court, arbitration or mediation for free because people are getting nuts. They're suing for their income these days. I have not had a single case against me. Okay. But I'm just telling you, I stopped being a realtor because I didn't want to fall under that. I thought it was an unfair, it was a disadvantage to my business plan just because the general public is crazy. When will Zombie Business Reviver be available and how can you purchase it, Seth, if you've already purchased one of our other programs, I believe if you click on the link to the resources page from that program you got, there should be a button on that resources page that says past buyer loyalty discounts. And I think you can pick it up there. I don't know for how much. Could be $297, could be $397. I have no idea where we have it priced right now. But typically you will be able to find a lot of the programs on there. Michael, Sean, if we submit a surplus funds file, how long should we wait to resubmit our file if we don't see it on the surplus list or haven't received an email from support? Michael, typically I'd say wait 2 to 3 business days. Right now, 4. We'll be caught up by the weekend. I apologize for that, but very good question. Ron, with the deed flip 30 program, are you providing the leads? Ron, The Deed Flip 30 program, I'm not making fun of you, but same thing with National Deed Flip. You can work upcoming mortgage foreclosures, but tax deed sales, upcoming tax, just do this. Google upcoming tax deed sales, and you'll just be flooded. Okay. Florida's a different separate program than the other, but other than that, anywhere you got it, we'll work it. So my God, there's no reason to get the leads. You're just, all you're doing. Now, do you mean skip tracing? No, because we're not going to skip trace for you. That's why it's a 30% of net program. Jason. Would you consider showing how the surplus files are submitted, National Surplus or Premier 16? I have the 50 program and find names that are already on the list. Would consider pursuing it if it was submitted as Premier 16. Reason being, I don't know how or what program they're using to skip trace the client or if they even are. So with surplus, National Surplus, they're not skip tracing it. We skip trace it. So we're trying to reach them ourselves. Premier 16, they're skip tracing it. That's another reason why we have a purge file, Jason. At a certain point, we're going to kick it out if people obviously haven't turned it in. But if it's, I don't understand the issue, because that list is showing you what not to work, right? That's our active files list. So just move on to another one. Don't try to resubmit something somebody else has turned in. Guys, it looks like we're getting close to the end of the questions. Man, this has been nonstop, and I love it. I really like to see the interaction. Guys, a couple people, I asked some questions. I didn't get any feedback when I was trying to get clarity. I'd love to get some clarity on that. Oh, here you go. Our current programs and pricing, you got a direct link. And again, guys, if you haven't bought from us, we're going to be pulling this stuff off and on as we feel like it. It's not always going to be available. None of our programs are going to be available all the time. It's just the way we're going to run it. Very happy with how we're growing right now. And we may go to a once a month sale, and that's it, where it's the same price. It's just we're only going to allow it to be available once a month. So that's important you understand that. Chris, can you tell us how we should address dealing with attorneys when we seek their assistance? Are there any scripts for calls or emails? I know, Chris, on the National Surplus, I've got a video that kind of covers that. So let me go into that with you. So my first thing to tell you is, if you're reaching out, if you don't know a local attorney and you want to hire an attorney in another state, there's a couple of ways to go about this. First is to call the state bar. And I know a lot of you guys are going to freak out because I just said that. Oh my God, I called the state bar. I'm going to get in trouble. No, you're not. Just call the state bar. Hey, I need a referral. I'm trying to figure out how to work a surplus funds file in Arapahoe County. Can you refer an attorney to me? Well, let's check. Let's see if anybody works that, and then we'll get back to you. Great. The other thing you can do is call the court and say, look, I'm not asking. This is very important you ask this way. I'm not asking for referral. I know you guys don't refer people. Can you tell me some attorneys, please, please, please? Can you tell me some attorneys that have successfully claimed overage? So I just know who's out there doing it. I'm not trying to get a referral. You're not going to hear from me later about this or anybody else. Please help me out, okay? And guys, whatever you do, when you're talking to the court, don't John Wayne it. You need to give me this list because it's freedom of information and that kind of crap. Don't do that. Don't John Wayne it, okay? These people don't need the attitude, and they're going to hang up on you. Just be nice to them, right? And just work it slow, and you'll get whatever you want. Just be very nice and say please a lot, okay? And for God's sake, some people still go into the courthouse. I don't know why, but some people actually go to the courthouse thinking they've got a better chance at a list. If you do, go dress nice, okay? I mean, even the criminals going in, this is a good point. Even the criminals going into the courthouse are dressed well, right? So dress well when you go in there. But you certainly don't need to go in to get a list. You can call, you can email, you can find a lot of lists online for free. You can buy lists if you want. Janice, if we find a property that is a state of, how do we find the executor, executrix of the estate? Good question, Janice. Some states will actually list all court cases and at least give you some information on who the executor or executrix is. Some of them. Sometimes you'll also see a deed that is an executor or executrix deed, where it's given over to that person or it was willed to someone and they've transferred it at that point. Typically, when you guys are trying to get a hold of that person, and we try to avoid deceased folks, but if you try to get a hold of the people, that's where microbill is going to be a big deal for you. Okay. Because microbill is really good at finding possible relatives and associates, and you can ask the question. Let me tell you what else is a really great way, especially if it's a big deal and you're going down the rabbit hole, you can't let it go. Another great thing to do is if you can get a copy of the death certificate, because on there's a line where it lists, I'm trying to think of what they're called, guys. It's on the death certificate. It is anyway, it'll list a name in there. It's not the person that did any autopsy or anything crazy like that. It's just somebody that's mentioned. You'll see it. I forget what they're called, guys. I'm sorry. But that person is that's the person that identified the body. Okay. So they're a close friend of the family, and they're the person that has their crap together, and they're the one that's going to be able to tell you who's the executor or the executrix. It's just a great way to figure that out. I wish I could remember what the name of that person is. Guys, I think it looks like we've come to the end of questions. I'm going to wait another minute, and then we can wrap it up. It's been a great long period. Again, Jeff has posted up there. You should have been able to see it. You can go to surplusfundsriches.net, and there's a / on there. Let me see if I can hit this to where it's shown again. I'm broadcasting it just like he did. Oh, wow. How about that? I can broadcast. Chris, how soon after we submit our third approved file can we submit other files? What's the time frame? Chris, if you're saying you said third approved file, so it's been approved. In other words, it showed up on the list. So you've got 3 files that are on the accepted files list. If that's the case, go. The governor is off. Informant, David, thank you so much. They're called the informant. Thank you. On the death certificate, guys. The person that is the informant is the person that basically said, yeah, that's John Smith right there. Thank you. I would have never remembered that. It's been a while since I had to look that up. So Chris, again, you got third approved. It's been approved. In other words, it showed up on the accepted files list. You got 3 on there. There's no governor on there. There's no meter. Rock it out. And thank you, David, for that. That was awesome. I would have never remembered informant. I think we're about done, guys. I know there's about a 1 or 2 minute delay. I think we're about done here. I'm going to wrap it up. Remember, if you haven't purchased yet, definitely want to go to that. It's right up there right now. Click on that thing if you can. Click on that link. Hey, no problem, Wanda. Definitely click on the link and check that out. And go there and buy as soon as you can, because I know we're going to be pulling it down soon, most of the programs, just because we're going to give it a rest. The other thing is go to our YouTube page. The replay will be on there if you don't get notice of the replay here. I've got another question coming in, but I'll come to that. And then, of course, our Facebook page too. But definitely go to the website and buy it when you can. Jeff and I are also under a little pressure here to raise price on that stuff, because the price of the book covers the cost of us starting you guys up. Okay, both support and what we're doing. Everything's going up, guys. Our mailings are going up and all that. And of course, when somebody comes on as a researcher, we're doing mailings for you. We're doing calls for you. I've gone up I had to give raises to everybody just to keep them. Okay. Because I know what's going on in the labor market. So that went up 10%. So all this stuff is jumping up dramatically. So we're really wrestling with that. So I would definitely get on that as soon as you can. Yvonne, I purchased the best. Will you still work for me? Absolutely. You purchased it 6 months ago. There's no deadline on that. Get on it. I would recommend you pick one file, Yvonne, and start with that. And then you can work yourself into other files. Don't try to learn all the files in your bundle and try to work. You're going to go crazy. You're never going to work any. Pick one and work it. And Stefania, what's the average files to submit till one is a good one to work? I'm just wondering how many files should we submit before we get one. Stefania, you guys have a couple already. I'm sorry, there's a delay in getting up with you. I believe there's at least a couple. I'll get up with you soon on that. Guys, I think we're good. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Man, what a great night. What great questions. You should also be able to comment on the YouTube when you watch the replay. So if you have any questions there. And again, I'm available 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday at 704-791-9398. Thanks, guys.